You're watching CBS 3. Land's News Center. This is News Center Tonight.
The charge in Duluth's first murder case of the year is second-degree homicide. Bail for Spency Walker is $300,000. It's still nearly a year before the Polymet project is up and running, but officials toured the progress of the Hoyt Lakes facility today. And a child rapist faces the death penalty in Louisiana, even though the Supreme Court has ruled he can't be put to death. Good evening. The suspect in the drug-related murder of Stanley Booty has been charged. Spency Walker was charged today in St. Louis County Court with 2 counts of second-degree murder. Booty was shot in the back during a drug deal in his apartment. He died the next day after 5 hours in surgery. Bail for Walker has been set at $300,000. The permitting process is moving forward for Polymet mining in Hoyt Lakes. The company hopes to use part of the old LTV steel plant there to mine ore from the Duluth complex, a world-class deposit of copper, nickel, cobalt, gold, platinum, and palladium. Chris Buckley toured the facility with Area Chamber of Commerce members earlier today.
Officials at Polymet Mining are hoping to build upon the area's infrastructure and mining experience to produce thousands of tons of precious metals each year. A draft environmental impact statement for the $600 million project is expected by mid-August. After a public comment period, company officials hope the necessary permits will be issued and construction can begin.
Once we receive permits, it'll be about 9 to 12 months before we get the mine opened up, the concentrator running, and be able to produce a concentrate. And then another 12 to 18 months after before we get the finishing facilities and are actually making plated copper on site.
LTV Steel opened back in the 1950s and shut down in 2001. Polymet hopes to utilize a large part of the upfront processing facilities.
We'll be reutilizing a lot of the infrastructure, power, rail, crushers, concentrators, and then we'll be adding new state-of-the-art technology in flotation, and the hydromet facility, which is the workhorse that separates the metals so that we're able to recover them and make them for use.
The open pit mine will use the latest technology to recover the minerals, and company officials say the environmental impacts will be minimal.
Really, the biggest difference in the process from mine disasters of the past is what we're doing in the processing. We're doing recovery and upgrading of the metals in flotation, which is in tanks contained inside the buildings. Our metal recovery versus a smelter, we're going to be using an autoclave process.
So far, the project has met with widespread support from the community, though environmental groups are opposed to it.
We're here, we want to develop a project, we want to be able to do this. These mines are going to be developed someplace, whether it's in Minnesota under strict environmental regulations or in China where they really don't do much at all in regards to the environment. Let's do it here so we know it's being done right.
Plans and funds to reclaim the land after 20 years of mining there must be in place before any minerals are taken from the ground. For Ranch 11, I'm Chris Buckley.
If that project does continue as planned, it is estimated that it will create 400 full-time jobs and 500 spin-off jobs, an estimated annual impact of $242 million in St. Louis County alone. More than 2,000 smoke-free supporters and advocates came together this evening to celebrate 100% smoke-free fresh air in Minnesota workplaces. Minnesota Representative Tom Huntley threw the first ceremonial pitch at tonight's game in celebration of the anniversary of the passage of the workplace smoking ban. A major condominium complex opened its doors to the public tonight in Duluth. The Beacon Point Luxury Resort held a grand opening inviting the public to the resort. The 3-building complex boasts views of Lake Superior, which managing president Scott Utley says is the resort's greatest asset.
It's the best of both worlds because it's a North Shore resort right on the water but in the city. So people can have, just like being up on North Shore, but have all the amenities of the city as well.
One of Beacon Point's owners, Wells McGiffin, says he hopes that the resort becomes a premier vacation destination.
We're just excited to be able to share with the public now and be able to open it up for people to come and stay with us and also offer these beautiful condos for sale.
The resort took 3 years to build, and a majority of the condo units were sold 2 years ago. As of this morning, there is a new officer in charge at the helm of Coast Guard Station Duluth. Master Chief Tom Wilson was relieved by Senior Chief Chris Wisson at a change of command ceremony today on Park Point. Wilson commanded the station for the past 4 years and departs Duluth to serve aboard a Coast Guard cutter. Wisson comes to the Northland from the Coast Guard station in Green Bay. The DNR, Border Patrol, and members of the Coast Guard from the region all took part in wishing both men well at today's ceremony. Over 250 people volunteered their day to various nonprofit organizations around the community today. The United Way held its 13th annual Day of Caring at Memorial Park.
It gives individuals from businesses and individuals in the community an opportunity not only to go out and lend a hand, but also to help get a better understanding of what the work these agencies are doing in our local community and the impact that they make in the lives of those who need their services.
Volunteers put together 1,200 backpacks designed to help prepare preschoolers for kindergarten. They also helped improve landscaping, and they planted flowers. The volunteers could choose to help any of the 15 different United Way organizations. George Kessler joins us now. Beautiful weather for anything outdoors today. What a great day.
It is. It has been. It's a delightful evening out there. I realize that it's getting a little late, but temperatures are still quite pleasant. And you may have noticed, I don't know how sensitive your humidity detector is, that it's begun to get drier. A front pushed through the region, triggered some thunderstorms earlier today. Those have, for the most part, subsided. We still have a couple of very widely scattered showers out there, but noticing the radar right in front of you got a few out over the lake. Other than that, it really is pretty calm. Temperatures delightful. It's 77 at the airport, 75 International Falls. Cool spot on the map, that 61 that you see up in Thunder Bay. Any showers that are around will be ending. Temperatures will fall, but they're going to fall that far. Mid-50s on the range, about 60 once you get to the Twin Ports and through northwestern Wisconsin. And for the day tomorrow, I think it will be delightful. Highs right around 80 degrees, lower levels of humidity. Winds out of the north to northwest 5 to 15 means the lake air will stay out over the lake where it belongs. It could be one or two late evening showers and thunderstorms developing out in the far west. We'll talk more about that when I come back.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Thank you,
bet.
George. The sales of small pickup trucks are rising due to high gasoline prices. Ford makes its small truck, the Ranger, at a plant in St. Paul at which they've planned to halt production next year. But the company now is considering keeping that plant open longer than planned. In tonight's Money Watch, no news is good news. Here's Alexis Christoforous.
The Federal Reserve didn't deliver any surprises. It left interest rates unchanged at 2%. The Fed is concerned about inflation and warns there could be a rate hike later this year. Oil prices tumbled on a surprise jump in U.S. stockpiles. Crude fell more than $2 to $134 a barrel. Cash-strapped Americans are cutting back rather than paying record gas prices. On Wall Street, an early rally lost steam, but stocks still managed to finish higher. The Dow gained a modest 4 points. The Nasdaq climbed 33. There is no sign of a recovery in the slumping housing market. New home sales fell 2.5% in May. Home prices are down 6% since last year. California and Illinois announced lawsuits against home lender Countrywide Financial. They say Countrywide should pay for tricking borrowers into taking risky home loans. And the former head of the New York Stock Exchange may get to keep his $187 million pay package after all. The state Supreme Court threw out key parts of a New York lawsuit, but Richard Grasso remains accused of illegally transferring stock exchange assets and concealing his pay from the board of the exchange. That's your Money Watch. Log on to cbsnews.com for more. At the New York Stock Exchange, I'm Alexis Christoforous.
You're watching News Center Tonight. I'm Pat Kelly. The Supreme Court rules that unless it's a homicide case, a state cannot execute a criminal. Louisiana says it wants to kill a child rapist. That story is next. A group of truckers moving through Wisconsin can't leave with their immense cargo of wind turbines because of flooding in Iowa. And Freddie Frand is a household name on the Iron Range if you happen to be a dedicated dirt track racer or fan.
Chrysler Dodge.
A Minneapolis attorney who represented thousands of Alaskans in the 1989 Exxon Valdez disaster says he's shocked by one of today's Supreme Court rulings. The court cut the $2.5 billion punitive damages award for the worst oil spill in the U.S. history to $500 million. Justice David Souter wrote for the court that punitive damages may not exceed what the company already paid to compensate victims for economic losses. The Minneapolis law firm of Faegre and Benson represented the single largest group of the roughly 32,000 plaintiffs in the state. Can you be sentenced to death for raping a child? The Supreme Court says no. It has just ruled that child rapists cannot face the death penalty, saying capital punishment is reserved for murderers. Kelly Arena of CNN has background on the case that was brought before the court.
He's not a killer, but Patrick Kennedy was sentenced to die for his crime. The New Orleans native sits here on death row at Louisiana's maximum security prison. Unlike the more than 3,000 inmates facing execution nationwide, Kennedy is unique. He's the first prisoner in decades to face death for a crime other than murder. Kennedy brutally raped a child in this house. The victim, his 8-year-old stepdaughter.
In my opinion, the rape of a child is more heinous and more hideous than a homicide because the child survives with what has happened.
But death penalty opponents argue a death sentence could give attackers a reason to murder their victims.
If they're going to face the death penalty for raping the child, why would they leave a living witness?
Louisiana is the only state actively pursuing lethal injection for raping children. In 1977, the Supreme Court banned execution for rape, but Louisiana lawmakers said the ruling only applied when victims were adults, and in 1995 passed a law allowing execution for the rape of children under 12.
When we look at unusualness, what it means to be cruel and unusual, this is exactly the kind of unusualness that raises these serious concerns about the constitutionality of Mr. Kennedy's death sentence.
Senator Barack Obama in Chicago today disagreed with the Supreme Court's decision outlawing the execution of a child rapist.
Rape of a small child, 6 or 8 years old, is a heinous crime. And if a state makes a decision that under narrow, limited, well-defined circumstances, the death penalty is at least potentially applicable, that does not violate our Constitution.
Obama is ready to help his former campaign rival, Hillary Clinton, pay down her massive campaign debt. And Clinton is ready to hit the campaign trail to back Obama. As the Democrats work to unify the party, John McCain is continuing to promote himself as the candidate with the experience to lead. Susan Roberts reports from Washington.
You'd never know she was once his rival. Barack Obama looks forward to campaigning with Hillary Clinton. She says the feeling is mutual.
I am 100% committed to doing everything I possibly can to make sure that Senator Obama is sworn in as the next president of the United States.
Clinton's remarks come as Obama's top donors start to help with their campaign debt. As of the end of May, the Clinton camp owed more than $22 million. Obama hopes the financial aid and his upcoming joint appearance with Clinton will help bridge the divide in the Democratic Party.
I want her campaigning as much as she can. She was a terrific campaigner. She, I think, inspired millions of people.
The push for unity appears to be working. The latest poll shows Obama with a 12-point lead over Republican John McCain. The LA Times poll also shows Obama's stand on domestic issues like the economy is a big draw for voters. But with gasoline topping $4 a gallon, John McCain is betting that he can win over voters with his energy proposals. He made the case in Las Vegas.
I will break the stalemate in Washington, and I will put this country on a course to energy security.
McCain also needs cold, hard cash. He has raised $122 million since the start of the race, less than half of Obama's $287 million. Susan Roberts, CBS News, Washington.
Sports is next on News Center tonight, and George Kessler will be back in with the full forecast. And later, the floodwaters of Iowa actually create a refugee city of sorts in Wisconsin. Truckers stuck with a huge load and no drivable roads near their destination.